So Michael, you're 2 years into this experiment. Bitcoin's been around since, I guess late '09, early 2000, 10, and it was obviously, basically created for, all the things that you just mentioned. Obviously, censorship resistance is a really important part of it, store of value, fiat debasement, that sort of thing. And so we get that. If you're new to this story and this is the first time someone's listening to Michael Saylor talk about these sorts of issues, I look at Bitcoin's market cap at under a trillion, right? And I say to myself, all those other asset classes that you just mentioned, specifically real estate, are magnitudes of that. What do you say to somebody of where they are if they're intrigued by this, this idea? Like, what stage are we in? What inning are we in? Is it the first pitch of the first inning with less than 1 trillion in market cap? Because some people think, obviously the train's left the station here. This is something where millions of Americans own Bitcoin, but is this the sort of thing that is it too late for all intents and purposes for some people who kind of just new to the story?
Well, I mean, it seems to me that it's pretty obvious there's $100 trillion worth of monetary energy or wealth that would be better served to be sitting in a synthetic digital asset like Bitcoin than to be sitting in real estate or gold or equities that are currency derivatives or other kinds of weak currencies. So you got 100x opportunity or addressable market from here under, even without considering inflation. By the time we get there, it'll probably be 200x. So I don't think we're too early. I think we're 1-2% into it if you look at it weighted. If you look at it from a time point of view, if you're an institutional investor, the first 10 years of a crypto network, you probably have to just sit and stare and see if it's going to break. So it was engineered, January 3rd, 2009, but you had to wait until about 2020 before you were sure it wasn't going to be hacked, banned, broken, copied. And so I think 10 years later, it starts to become interesting. We're year 2 of institutional adoption, right? Year 1 maybe started with MicroStrategy, bought $250 million of Bitcoin in August of 2020, and that runs about a year. Like, we're 18 months into our journey here. So you're in the middle of year 2 of institutional adoption. There's 10 years of education, and in those 10 years, what happens at the end of year 1, well, Elon Musk gets involved, and then all of a sudden there's 24 Bitcoin miners that are publicly traded vehicles about now. There's another dozen companies probably come public. So you're watching the institutionalization of the asset class. We're waiting for guidance from the SEC, the FDIC. The executive order from the White House last week was a massive milestone. Biden's election was a massive milestone, but the executive order was a double massive milestone because that directed 18 agencies to figure this out. That'll be 24 months. By the end of the first Biden administration, I think we have 80% of the regulatory clarity that you need to understand this. That means that from the year 2024 to the year 2028, 80% has been figured out. And by the year 2030, maybe 90% has been figured out. And at that point, I think it's just kind of like a growth industry. I mean, it'll be a nice growth industry, 2030 to 2040. But right now we're in hyper growth, early stage, lots of questions, lots of people don't understand it. But I love that part because I think this is the stage. It's like 2011 Google stock or 2011 Amazon or Apple or Facebook. Just at the stage where it's kind of unstoppable. It's necessary. A reasonable objective person would say Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, they were all useful and necessary in the year 2012. And yet only, 95% of the people were underallocated. And then those things worked for the next 8 to 10 years. And then by the year 2021, every 21-year-old Uber driver, if you asked him, would have said, oh yeah, I own Facebook stock or I own Amazon stock, or they get in debates about whether Google's better than, Apple, and it's not really it's not that high growth stage anymore. It's that maturing dominant monopoly stage where now you're just tied into the greater growth of the techno
And,
economy.